Welcome to this week's edition of Flashback Friday, your opportunity to get some good review by listening to episodes from the past that Jason has handpicked to help you today in the present and propel you into the future. Enjoy.
Speakers, publishers, consultants, coaches, and info marketers unite. The Speaking of Wealth show is your roadmap to success and significance. Learn the latest tools, technologies, and tactics to get more bookings, sell more products, and attract more clients. If you're looking to increase your direct response sales, create a big-time personal brand, and become the go-to guru, the Speaking of Wealth show is for you. Here's your host, Jason Hartman.
Welcome to the Speaking of Wealth show. This is your host, Jason Hartman, where we discuss profit strategies for speakers, publishers, authors, consultants, coaches, info marketers, and just go over a whole bunch of exciting things that you can use to increase your business, to make your business more successful and more passive and more automated and more scalable. So we will be back with a great interview. Be sure to visit us at speakingofwealth.com. You can take advantage of our blog, subscribe to the RSS feed, and many other resources for free at speakingofwealth.com. And we will be back with a great interview for you in less than 60 seconds.
What's great about the shows you'll find on jasonhartman.com is that if you want to learn how to finance your next big real estate deal, there's a show for that. If you want to learn more about food storage and the best way to keep those onions from smelling up everything else, there's a show for that. If you honestly want to know more about business ethics, there's a show for that. And if you just want to get away from it all and need to know something about world travel, there's even a show for that. Yep, there's a show for just about anything. Only from jasonhartman.com, or type in Jason Hartman in the iTunes store.
It's my pleasure to welcome Kate Mosse to the show. No, it's not the Kate Mosse who's a model, but she is an internationally acclaimed author of many books. Her newest book is Citadel, and she comes to us today from New York City, where she was doing an event. Of course, she's written plays, books, fiction, nonfiction, just an incredible career. And Kate, welcome. How are you?
I'm really well, and I'm so pleased to you today. It's my publication day yesterday in America, so I'm still, excited and a bit full of the excitement of just being and celebrating the publication.
Yeah, well, congratulations on that. Tell us, Kate, we're all familiar, maybe you're not, but the rest of us are, familiar with the concept of writer's block. And how do you write good content so consistently? Let's talk about the actual mechanics of writing and some tips there, and then I want to talk about marketing and so forth.
Yeah, totally. Well, from my point of view, I think writing, you have to treat it like a professional job, the same as everybody else who's listening to this show treats their job. Nobody who's a doctor or a nurse or a teacher would say, do you know, I don't feel like it today. I won't go to work. And for me, that's what writing is. And there is this wonderful phrase from the great Samuel Beckett, an Irish playwright and a novelist. And he had this phrase that I always have in my mind, and it's, try again, fail again, never mind, fail better. So for me, writing is about sitting at your desk every day. Some days it goes better than other days, but you keep at it, because the only way to be a better writer and to produce content that you'd be proud to share with readers is to keep working at it. So it's hard work that makes good writing, as well as a bit of imagination and a good story thrown in.
Right. Well, there's nothing like the 20-year overnight success, right?
No, that's right.
Everybody from the outside sometimes wants to discount other people's successes, though it's easy. But it really is a chore, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah, but it's a wonderful chore. But I think, and yes, of course, luck comes into it. And, having the right idea, the right character, with your skill at the right time, sure, all of those things. Hard work, it's about one word after the next, one sentence after the next, And then you've got a paragraph, and then before you know it, you've got a chapter. And then before you know it, you've got, in my case, Citadel, which has got a lot of chapters. But it's having your head down on the work on the page and not lifting your eyes up and thinking about the bigger picture, just thinking about the detail of the day-to-day work. And that's very reassuring. And that's also really satisfying, because at the end of a day's work, you think, I really tried my best.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, how do you come up with your ideas? What do you use to generate ideas? Like the broad idea for a book and then specific ideas within a novel, say?
Sure. Well, Citadel, which is my new book just out in the States on 18th March, is the story of an all-women's resistance unit in the southwest of France, a place called Carcassonne, a place where we lived part of the year, for the past 25 years. And the inspiration for that is being in Carcassonne, the history of the place. It is the landscape of the place. It's discovering, in the case of Citadel, that all of the members of the Carcassonne resistance were executed on the same day, 19th August, 1944. But over the time, the men have all been identified and their names are on the memorials, but the two women who died alongside them have remained lost to us. Their names are lost to us. So in the case of Citadel, I thought, I'm a novelist. I'm not a historian. I can't write who they were, not in all truth. But I can write a novel about the sort of women they must have been and the sort of men who must have loved and worked with them to have enabled them to be the women they were. So for me, it's that combination of real hard facts and research, the place that I know and love so well that's under my skin now, and then that leap of imagination where historical fiction can take you from the point onwards where the facts have stopped. And that's why, all of my novels are inspired by real history, but they are imagined characters and an imagined narrative against the backdrop of the real researched history.
Just curiously, Citadel, are you publishing all of your books on Kindle now?
All of my books are available in different formats because as a writer, I'm a storyteller. I write big adventure stories, page-turning novels, but with serious purpose behind them, if you like. But it's not up to me how people choose to read them. I'm an old-fashioned person at heart, so I still read novels as books because I like the feel of them in my hands. But I celebrate however people get their stories, whether it's on a tablet or a Kindle or a book or an audio book for people who are, partially sighted or find reading difficult for sustained periods of time. So everything is available in all formats that are now available to us. Yeah.
The reason I ask is because when I pull it up on Amazon, only the Kindle comes up until you actually click through and search it. But, that's a publishing detail. I don't want to get too sidetracked on that. That's interesting. I think it's Amazon probably really promoting Kindle products specifically.
Yes, I suspect that's the case.
I don't doubt that a bit. So, Kate, have you ever used any software to help you write, just out of curiosity? I have a feeling you're going to say no on this, but just thought I'd ask.
You're right, because you see, I'm English, and secondly, I'm in my 50s. So I'm just, I grew up with different techniques, but no, I haven't, because I think depending on what you're doing, some of those programs are terribly helpful. Certainly if you're doing screenplays or things that require a certain sort of formatting and things, absolutely. My husband, who's also a writer, uses voice recognition software because for him, he was a teacher, and so he finds the speaking aloud is the key to unlock his imagination. For me, I don't feel that. I find that any program, in an odd sort of way, gets between me and my imagination. It doesn't support it, it gets between me. But of course, I use a computer and I type, and that's, again, a product of my age that, I grew up in the times where I'm afraid, and it's great that this has changed, but you still, when you left university, could, as a girl, be a secretary. So I was trained to touch type properly. So I can type very, very fast, very accurately. And I'm very grateful for that training because it means that I can type on a computer as fast as I think.
Yeah,
Whereas
that's
not true
great.
for some people. So, yeah, that is a program of sorts. I wouldn't ever write, I don't write longhand because it's one of the things that is terrific about computers, of course, is that you can move your material around very easily. And with a novel like Citadel, which is very highly researched, very complicated, it means that sometimes I have an idea, and then when I go to the second draft, I think, you know what? That bit of the story belongs in chapter 70, not in chapter 7. And so the computer helps you to move copy about. And I find that a very valuable tool, certainly.
Oh, yeah, of course. Do you have a certain time of day in which you like to write?
I do. I have. I always feel embarrassed saying this because it sounds like I'm this incredibly austere person. But it's my advice always to writers is if you are free to follow what your instinct, find out what suits you and stick to it. There's no trick about this. There's no good time of day. It's only the time of day that suits you. So for me, when I'm writing, as opposed to researching and planning and thinking, and, we'll come on to that in a moment, but when I'm actually writing a novel, I start at about 4 a.m. I get up straight, from that half-dreaming state. I have a cup of very strong black sweet coffee, and I write for 3 or 4 hours straight through, and then I will stop and have another cup of coffee and some breakfast and write for another couple of hours. So I've done 6 hours or so, by mid-morning. And then it leaves me free the rest of the day to maybe do some more writing, but probably edit and look at what I've got to, what I've produced. And I just find the early part of the day, when you're the one person awake in a house that is sleeping, that is the time when my imagination is most active and fertile. But I have many friends who are writers who go to their computer at midnight and write all through the night. It's always about what suits you and what helps you to most support your own creativity and imagination.
Sure. Well, you're obviously a very productive writer, and I mean the length of Citadel, for example, 704 pages. I mean, that's big.
Yeah, it's big. But you know what? A book tells you how long it is. I don't sit down and think, okay, this book is going to be 700 pages odd. What I do is I think I have this story I want to tell about an all-women's resistance unit. I know it's a story of love. It's a story of female friendship. It's a story of war and living under occupation. It's a story of courage. So I have certain key hooks, if you like, in my mind. And then I start to write, and my lead character, Sandrine, is the person that comes to me, and then her lover, Raoul, and then all the other women of the unit, Lucy, Marianne, Suzanne, so on. And the story then chooses its own shape. And because it is a big piece of research and a big story, the novel fell out long. And of course, other stories, my Gothic novels, which are often supernatural or about ghosts, they're much, much shorter because the story doesn't require a long amount of narrative, a long amount of explanation, whatever. But what I love about Citadel, already it's only been about 24 hours in the US, I've already had so many tweets and so many emails to the website from people saying, I really love a big book that you can get your teeth into, that you can curl up in a chair and it keeps you company for a week or more. So that is it for me, that the story itself tells you how long it's going to be. It's not something you superimpose from the outside.
Right. And Labyrinth is 527 pages, so that's fairly long too, for sure. Yeah, Kate, do you? You mentioned that you were embarrassed to sound austere in your writing technique, writing very early in the morning and long binges. I mean, of 6 hours at a time. That's pretty. That's a wholesome discipline for sure. Do you set goals for your writing in terms of how much content you're going to produce in a certain amount of time or anything?
Yeah, no, I don't. For me, it's exactly the same as going to the swimming pool. I decide, when I go swimming, I think, okay, I'm going to swim for half an hour. I don't count the number of lengths or, play games against beating myself from yesterday. And I'm the same with writing. I never set myself, I will write X number of words today, because some days I might write 4,000 words, but you know what? They're not that great. Other days I might write only 500 words. But when I look back at them and I think, every single one of those counts for something. So for me, it's about using them well, not putting myself under pressure with false deadlines or false goals, because I don't need that. What I need is to sit there until I feel my brain has run out of juice, and then I'll go and do something else. I'll be with my family, I'll walk the dog, I'll do my emails, I'll go to the supermarket. I let my brain say, you know what, you're tired now, you've done enough. But I'm in a very privileged position in that I'm a full-time writer and I make my living as being a writer. Now, if I was in the position that so many of your listeners will be in, that they're passionate to write, but they are still doing a day job or they're full-time carers or whatever, then I think goal setting is quite a helpful thing. Because if you're very tired at the end of the day working at the office or hospital or school, saying to yourself, but whatever happens, I'm going to do 500 words this weekend. I think that is a helpful thing. So it's back to my core advice, which is know yourself, know what you need as a writer to encourage yourself, to propel yourself forward, to help you produce the best work you are capable of producing, and then try and find a way of achieving that within your writing setup.
Very good advice. Very good advice. Well, before you go, anything else that you'd like to, mention? Maybe questions I didn't cover, or any advice to writers today, or whatever.
Well, I have two pieces of advice, I guess. The first is you cannot be a good writer if you're not a good reader. So if you are anybody listening thinking I'm going to write something, you've got to be reading first. Because everything you read helps you. Sometimes the very good books don't help you very much. A book you're not so keen on or is in a genre that's not yours, sometimes that liberates you to see the architecture of the book because you're not so caught up in the story. You're looking to see, well, that doesn't work, so ask yourself why it doesn't work. So, and it's also a corollary to that is that you might not be the sort of writer you are as a reader. So I read a lot of detective fiction, and I also read a lot of literary fiction. But it turns out I'm not that writer. I'm a page-turning thriller adventure writer. So the person you are as a writer and the person you are as a reader, they're not necessarily the same. The second thing is that it's very hard to find the time to write. And there is always a temptation to want it to be perfect. So you find any excuse not to write. But 5 minutes every single day is better than no minutes every single day. It's like getting fit. The more you do it, the more you will get rid of the fear of failure, the more you will understand that failure is an essential part of good art. So anyone listening who's very short of time, doesn't matter if it's just 5 minutes and you throw it in the dustbin the next day, do it every day as a discipline. And then soon you'll discover that you've got that novel you've always dreamed of writing.
That's a fantastic advice, Kate. Excellent advice. Just developing that consistency, that habit, that momentum, that daily discipline of doing something, even if it's a small thing. So very good advice.
And also the thing I would say, Jason, is that people often say to me, I want to be a writer. And I say, well, what have you written? And then they tell me they've written 3 novels. And I'll say, well, you are a writer. The fact you're not published yet means you're not a writer. So, for everybody, it's hard getting published, no doubt. But nowadays, there are many ways of finding your way to readers that are bypass traditional publishing routes or whatever. But if you are writing, you are a writer. Be proud of that achievement and see the publishing of it and then the marketing and the promotion and the, being in the New York Times bestseller list. They're separate things. But be proud of yourself as a writer first and foremost. And if you are, then you will realize that people start to take you seriously before you're a published writer. And that way, obviously, satisfaction about possibly having readers and being invited on to shows to give you advice. This is how a writing career starts. You start small steps, and little by little, if you're lucky and the wind is in the right direction, as we'd say in England, you build up to having a career as a writer. And it is a great privilege to have that as a career, no doubt about it.
Yeah, that's excellent advice, excellent advice. And we've done so many shows, Kate, about self-publishing success and book marketing and so forth, other episodes on the show. Great point, but just get busy writing.
Great.
For sure. Well, Kate Mosse, thank you very much. Give out your website, if you would, and tell people where they can find you and your books.
Absolutely. Citadel is published now by William Morrow, just out. My website is www.katemosse, katemosse.co.uk. And I'm on Twitter at Kate Mosse and also on Facebook. And anyone who reads Citadel and who has enjoyed it, or even if you haven't, do get in touch and let me know, because writing can be a very solitary business. And the joy of writing when you're a published writer is you start to get feedback from readers. So I really, really value people taking the time to let me know what they enjoyed or didn't enjoy about my book. So, and I'm very proud of Citadel, so I'm particularly keen to hear back from people.
Good stuff. Well, congratulations on the release of Citadel. And again, thank you so much for sharing and sharing all these great tips with our listeners, Kate.
It's my pleasure. Thank you very much for having me on the show.
This show is produced by the Hartman Media Company, all rights reserved. For distribution or publication rights and media interviews, please visit www.hartmanmedia.com or email media@hartmanmedia.com. Nothing on this show should be considered specific personal or professional advice. Please consult an appropriate tax, legal, real estate, or business professional for individualized advice. Opinions of guests are their own, and the host is acting on behalf of Platinum Properties Investor Network, Inc. exclusively.